Welcome to Flourish Women's Ministry on FHTV. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you've had a lovely week so far. Tonight we have someone on the segment who was on a couple of weeks back. You've loved her input. She was phenomenal. And she's Sipe, a clinical psychologist and a part of our dream team here at Father's House. And she's going to be sharing tonight on our current topic. Tonight we're going to chat about relationships. It's something that we can all relate to. We all have multiple relationships in our lives, whether they're with our parents, our partners, our husbands, our children, our family members, our friends. Relationships play an essential role in our lives. When one of them is going through a challenging time, it affects all areas of our lives. And so tonight we're going to look at how do we make sure that our relationships stay healthy. In my own personal experience and opinion, the most amazing and important things to focus on regarding relationships is, first of all, communication, and secondly, boundaries. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 11 comments on relationships, and it says that we should always encourage one another in love, building up each other. And that speaks straight into the heart of communication, that we should always be kind to people in our relationships. We should always build them up and encourage them. That will go a long way in making sure that our relationships stay healthy. And the second thing is to have good boundaries in relationships. Boundaries are essential. And Sipe is going to share with us a little bit more about her insights and knowledge regarding boundaries, what to do to make sure that we maintain healthy boundaries in relationships, and what to do if they're not healthy at the moment. Check this out.
Good evening, ladies. My name is Pema Tuge and I'm a mental health ambassador. Today I'd like to talk about a very difficult subject, and that is relationships. We know how difficult relationships can be, I've actually titled the topic for tonight, Navigating Difficult Relationships. So difficult relationships can range from simply feeling uncomfortable in your own space and go up all the way to feeling unsafe in your own space. And if you're in that range of feeling unsafe in your own space, then it might be time to look at perhaps moving away from that space or removing yourself from that situation that makes you feel unsafe. We all know that relationships can be difficult at times, and I think more so now during the time of the lockdown, they are especially more difficult. So the question is, how do I navigate difficult relationships right now? Well, first of all, let's look at some things that I would advise against doing during the lockdown. And this is just specifically for lockdown. So one thing I'd advise against doing is don't bring up heated debates during this time, simply because if the debate becomes heated, then it does become difficult for you to move elsewhere. If, let's say, the difficult situation is within your home, bring up a heated a debate during this time can be difficult for you to move elsewhere. Maybe your friends or your relatives to live in a different town or in a different city, in a different province. So then it can be difficult for you to just get away, to just have a break. However, that doesn't mean that you don't take care of yourself or you just leave things. You still continue to take care of yourself, and if you find yourself in a difficult or a heated situation, then maybe consider separating yourself from the person, perhaps moving into another room, but please do talk to them about what hurts you. Do name and ask for certain changes in their behavior that is making your life difficult. And remember that this may be the first time that the person is hearing about this, so be gentle when you bring these things up. Other thing that I would advise against doing is don't assume that the other person knows what you're thinking or what you need. Rather, speak about what you need, make those requests, and see if change will happen. Not saying anything does breed resentment, and when you don't say anything, your mind starts to create all sorts of stories, as to why this person is acting in this way, and you might come up with things like so-and-so is selfish, and although this may be true, it may not be entirely true, because the other person, for example, may think that you enjoy cooking and you enjoy cleaning and that you thoroughly enjoy running the home, so that's why they leave that to you. Okay, so now there's a lot of things that underlie relationships or underlie difficult relationships, and that's maybe a breakdown in communication, and a whole lot of other things as well. But there's one very important thing, and that is boundaries, or lack of boundaries, specifically when you're speaking about navigating difficult relationships. Okay, remember, healthy boundaries are there to protect you as well as the other person. Healthy boundaries are there to make sure that you guys have a healthy and happy relationship. It's actually quite healthy to have boundaries in any relationship, whether it's between spouses, between siblings or relatives, or even in the workspace. You do need boundaries. Okay, so how does one know it's time to set boundaries? Well, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling resentful, those are usually markers that you do need to start setting boundaries. For example, if I am cooking and then whilst I'm cooking, a thought pops into my mind that I'm always doing the cooking, right? That is the time to speak with the other person, my housemate or my husband, about this. And remember, when you do raise this, you have to be gentle. Okay, don't be accusatory. Don't use always or never terms, right? Rather say something like, hey, I really need help with peeling the onions or peeling the potatoes, or I need help with doing this and doing that. Okay, instead of saying, you never help me cook, you never do this, you never do that, or I'm always the one doing this. Things like that. Never and always say statements are very much unfair, and they often lead to fights. Okay, so try to stay away from never and always statements. Okay, once again, this is really not the time to bring up very deep things that have been there for months or years that you haven't spoken about, because once again, you won't be, if you find yourself in a situation where you feel like you need to break away from this person, or you need to move away from your roommate, you won't be able to do that, or it may prove to be difficult to do that during this time. Okay, so what if I'm dealing with something a little bit more serious, like emotional or verbal abuse? Okay, so say for example, you're having an argument and the other person starts shouting and name calling, then that's the time to issue consequences. Example, the person is shouting at you, then you would say, if you continue to shout at me, then I'm going to leave the room, or I'm going to go outside, and when you're more calm and can respectfully speak to me, then you and I can get back together and speak about this matter. So you're establishing a boundary, and it's important that you don't just let the person shout or whatever it is that you feel is you being treated unfairly. It's important that you establish that boundary. Okay, let's say you leave the room and the person follows you out of the room and they're still shouting and name calling, then you have to say something like, I've asked you to please not follow me, or I've asked you to please not speak to me in that manner. And if they continue verbally attacking you, then you need to call someone for help, especially if you're feeling threatened. Okay, if you're feeling the situation is now abusive, you have to call for help. Most people will stop 2 or 3 times. After you've said, please stop 2 or 3 times, most people will actually respect that and stop. But if it continues to escalate, then you really might need to call in help, because at that point, it's really out of your hands. Okay, and if someone perhaps is not listening to you, but you know that they won't be physically abusive, then you still need to be firm with the person, and you still need to be direct, you still need to be assertive, make clear statements, and don't apologize for your requests, and follow through on your consequences. If you say, if you continue to speak to me in this way, then I'm leaving the room, then you actually need to do it, and not simply stand there and allow the person to continue to shout or name call. Yeah. So, very important, expect pushback. People will test your boundaries because they're not ready for the change, especially if you've been a passive person and now you're all of a sudden becoming assertive. People are not ready for that change, right? So they will test your boundaries. Remember, this is all new to them. People will be offended. And this includes people who are outside of the difficult relationship, relatives, friends, colleagues, etc. They all of those people around you may not be ready for this change. They will ask you things like, are you sure this is what you want? Are you really going to go ahead with this? Or some may be extreme and say, I'm not going to live with this, or I don't accept this, or things like that. If you set this boundary, I'm going to leave you. Those are things we hear when people set boundaries, okay? So expect that. And what it boils down to is having the life you want is your right. However, with every right, we all know there's responsibilities, right? So there will be some consequences to live with, and you'll have to weigh these against your right. Which one is more important? My mental health and my freedom? Is that more important than being disowned by my family or being sidelined by my friends, etc., because you've set this boundary? So you're gonna have to weigh which one are you more willing to live with or live without. Okay. Also, give people space to adjust. Once again, this is very new to them. They may need some time to think things through. Remember, you've been thinking about these changes for months or sometimes even longer than that, right? So even if they push back, in most cases you find that later with time the people actually bounce back and they start adjusting to the new you. So give people some time, give people the benefit of the doubt, okay? So I'm going to leave it there for today, and if there's anything that in particular that you'd like me to zoom in on and perhaps explain further, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Sipho. You always share such wise insight with us. And relationships and boundaries are so important. I hope that has guided you in how to make sure that your relationships and boundaries stay healthy and what to do if they're not. I really trust that your relationships are going to flourish from here on out. I really pray that you're just going to be kind to one another, be uplifting and encouraging towards one another. Maybe have a look at your current relationships, and if there's one or two that you feel are a little bit challenging at the moment, maybe dig into that, maybe pray into that area, maybe encourage them, maybe find a way that you can be exceptionally kind to them at this current time and see what God does. I pray really good, encouraging, good relationships for each and every single one of you. And remember that if there's anything you're going through at the moment that you want to chat to one of us in Women's Ministry about, you can just comment right now on the feed, or you're welcome to email us or contact us on the church line, and we'd love to chat to you. I hope you have a wonderful week further. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.